Hello, welcome to B3 In-Depth number 4, episode number 4. My name is Johannes. I am the host of B3 In-Depth. So my background is that I'm an artist, technologist, performer, have been doing weird shit for the last 30 years. And I'm very happy that, that the B3 chose me to be the official face of the B3 conversations, and it is a big proud moment for me to be able to introduce you to Anouk Wipprecht, our guest number 4.
Hey there.
Good to see you.
Yeah, for sure.
I'm in Vienna. You are sitting in sunny Miami or near Miami.
Yeah, Florida.
Absolutely. We can talk about Florida and the craziness of Florida maybe a little bit too. But first, let's go dive right into why we invited you, because you are one of the outstanding artists and technologists dealing with haptic interfaces, dresses, techno-sensual ideas. So there's so much that we can talk about. Mm-hmm. And so my first question would be, how did you actually end up in the realm of fashion technology? How did you slip into that?
Yeah, that was quite some time ago. I think I started to study myself fashion design, and what I thought was really cool about fashion design was that you could express yourself and like communicate something like almost secretly from yourself, or maybe about your mood or about your religion or about your culture or whatever you want to do, sort of. And I think I got born in the 80s and I grew up in the 90s, and we had like in the Netherlands, we got at one point like MTV and all those shows sort of, you know. So you had this big group of people and of celebrities and artists and musicians that were showing themselves through their garments. So I thought that was really fascinating. So I started myself to study fashion design, which I thought was the thing to do sort of. So I got pretty good at constructing the garments. But at one point I started to notice that it's not fully expressing you if you're wearing something in the morning because you're happy, but in the afternoon you're not happy anymore and you're still wearing a very funky flower dress or something like that, you know. So I think throughout my study I got really interested in how these these fashion pieces could change with us, you know. And when I was 17 years old, I got into robotics because of that. I started around 14 years old with fashion. You could do that in the Netherlands. But when I was 17 years old, I got really fascinated by robotics. But for me, it was like the heartbeat and the brain almost that I could almost embed in my fabrics and in my garments and all of that stuff. So at that time, I was working with like really big computers, like in the beginning of 2000s. Definitely, like later on, as 2005, 6, 7, the people from Arduino came about. So I actually went to Malmö University because David Guarteles was giving lessons in Arduino, this new board that they had. And I went over there to connect it to like fabrics, to connect it to design. And I have been doing that ever since. I work with all kinds of microcontrollers from Arduino to Raspberry Pis to feathers to making my own PCBs in, for example, software called Eagle. So it has been the last 15 to 18 years that I've been just trying to connect technology, so really electronics to fashion almost, you know. And that has been a lot of fun, a lot of also like just figuring stuff out and all of that stuff, because it's just this whirlwind of possibilities that you can have when you connect things in a sort of a hybrid setting. So that's where I came from.
Absolutely great. I can totally agree, because I mean, in my case, I'm not really dealing with fashion a lot, but I mean, seeing just in the last 15, 20 years, what's happening now and what is possible that was not possible before, just because the hardware is so cheap. Suddenly, like you can buy an Arduino, and it's small. And of course, that makes it easy to incorporate that into something that you wear. One of the first things that I learned about you is because I think we got introduced like 10 years ago, something like that. I guess.
Think so, yeah, 10, 11, 12. Yeah,
something like that. Yes. And very happy that we so I'm part of this group called Monochrome, and we published one of your catalogs back then about technosensual bodies, and that was a super great collaboration. And that was around the time that I remember that you presented, and it was completely mind-blowing for me, the spider dress. Could you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, I was with my friend Daniel Schatzmeier. I was working together with him a lot in Vienna. He works now as a programmer of the ZLAC and some other things at Otterbock. So he's a really cool sort of roboticist. And he showed me this game. It's called Limbo. I don't know if you know it, but it's like this black and white game. And there's a boy and a spider at one point. And I love the relationship between the boy and the spider in that game. Of course, the spider tried to sort of get to the boy, sort of, But as you walk closer to this spider that you saw in the game, the spider tries to like pinch this boy, almost kill him, of course, And that's my friend Daniel showed me, and he said like, "Oh, this is maybe a game that you really like." And then I was super obsessed by this spider in there, and we were doing some things with like robotic spiders and all of that stuff. So that became later sort of a laser cut version of a spider dress that we created for an event called Viva le Robot in Prague. But it became this sensoric dress that was based on this game, that when you step into the personal space of this dress, it would be attacking, sort of, So I had later on in my life, 6-7 years ago, I had the opportunity to work at Intel and to bring out some dresses based on that. So that is how the 3D printed version that you can see behind me came about. But it is a dress based on like proximity sensors. They're here in the front. And when you step in a personal space, it's attacking, and not just in one mode, but something that I call 12 states of behavior. So depending on how you walk up to this dress, it's reacting differently, because otherwise it would be, quite boring almost, But yeah, it's definitely one of my most like robotic dresses, robust and robotic dresses, fully 3D printed in this case, that is really, reacting to your environment, in this case, the personal space, which is a super interesting topic if you're talking about the body and fashion and everything,
Absolutely.
As being humans.
Yeah, and the whole debate about like toxic masculinity and getting too close to female bodies and it is wonderful. I think you should actually have a self-defense mechanism in there. The spider dress should just like shoot poison or something.
Ooh, like venom, yeah. Or like little blades or something like that. Yeah. But it's just so much fun to look at. I think we are used to looking at robots and all of that stuff as modeling them after humans, and then they act like we do, sort of. But what I love about this kind of stuff is that you make hybrids of things. I look at sort of the mechanics of the spider, like the spider legs. I give it a cat-like behavior. So when you step too close to a cat, you get a claw. So how can you all combine that in a project almost? So I look a lot at like social situations. I look a lot at like how animals, for example, defend themselves, or how they attract some other animals, or what they do, and I project that a little bit to my system. So I do a lot in interaction design. The field's called interaction design. How these things react if and when you put technology in the body. What does it do, sort of, and how can it become social? Like we did a collaboration with the Dare Droids 2.0 for Robo Exotica.
By the way, the poster is in the back.
Yeah, I saw it. Yeah, I love it.
It's not. That's from 2002. That was one of the first ones we did. But for all the people out there who don't know Robo Exotica, it's a festival I co-curate at Monochrome, and it's the festival for cocktail robotics. So we present machines that in some way serve you alcohol or deal with alcohol. Some of the machines also drink alcohol themselves. So it's alcohol and robots as a general concept for the festival. So tell us a little bit about the Dare Droid, because I think that is a very, very interesting concept you presented.
I was doing an artist in residency at Museumskwartier in Vienna, and this is how I met my friend Jane Tingley and Marius Kintel, because I was hanging around at MetaLab. It's like the hackerspace in Vienna. And actually Jane told me about Monochrome, like, hey, there's this really cool artist group in the Museumskwartier, you need to meet them. And that's how I actually got to meet you, through Jane. She also mentioned something to me. I was busy with another system, it's called Pseudomorphs. And I was busy with all these tubes and solenoid valves, and I was having my own boards to control these solenoid valves and all of that stuff. And then Jane also told me about Roboexotica, which is the cocktail making festival, robotic kind of thing. And I was like, oh my God, that sounds so cool. So we actually started to work on recreating the pseudomorph system, which I was working on with tubes and liquids and all of that stuff, to become a cocktail dress. And then we also connected it to a game of truth or dare. So the first prototype we presented at Roboexotica, and it was our friend, our model, Carmen. She was walking around, and you needed to play sort of an ARM-based interface we had, and you needed to answer some questions like, or do some things like roll over the floor. And if you did that, you got the cocktail from the dress, which was just like a really fun thing. Then we went on to actually, from that prototype that we created for Roboexotica, we went to create a Dare Droid 2.0 for Electra Festival in Montreal. So it got a second version, and we presented it there, and we had some other things, some updates, some like 3D printed parts, and it all looked very sleek. But I was just talking the other day with Jane. We really liked the first version because it was boxed. I was making this heart shape from like really a box kind of thing, and we had some duct tape going on and all of that stuff. It was this really fun kind of.
It was
definitely.
Very
like
cyberpunky.
Yeah, correct. Yeah,
it was extremely cyberpunky because it was super shiny, and we probably already have an image for you to see how it looks like. But I still remember this like almost like pixel art, ST art heart, where you would actually get the shot. But if you, and this like super beautiful model would walk around and dare you, yeah. But if she would turn around and you would look closely, you could see like like all the glue gun remains and all that stuff. And it's like it was all. I mean, I think you finished that stuff like a couple of hours before the show started.
No, definitely, we didn't have our studios. We had the Museumskwartier, which was an incredible place, but it was an empty studio, you know. So the only things that we had was the things that we could take. So it's this. Cardboard, and we're using like reused parts. Maybe we found it at the Meta Lab even, you know, hey, we can use this thing, yay, let's put it in there, you know. But it became this really fun project, and it was the first time that I really collaborated with many people. And it was not that me and Jane and Marius knew each other for like a longer time, you know. We just met, and it's like, hey, you're fun, let's do this thing. And that just became such an really, really fun project. It was really, it was definitely, so cool. It was a cool time in Vienna.
Yeah, it was great. But it leads me to a question that I really like to answer. I like to ask a lot is, what could you tell us a couple of stories of failure? Because I'm such a fan of beautiful failure. Because sometimes if machines go wrong or something breaks, the stuff is even more fun and interesting than the working machine. So, and I'm sure you have a lot of stories about failure to tell us.
Actually, the spider dress that I have behind me, it was funny. Like we presented it at CES for Intel. So the model was walking around. Her name was Whitney. She was walking around. And the design is pretty aggressive, like especially the more you come close, that's the concept, right? The more you come close, the more aggressive it becomes. We didn't took in consideration that people wanted to take pictures with it. And at that time, like the selfie was really that you could use your phone as a selfie. It was like 2014, 2015 was a really big thing, sort of, you know. So I didn't took in consideration that people wanted to come super close to that design and make a selfie with the dress, sort of, you know. And as the dress is reacting really... how do you say that, really rapidly, sort of people come close and they're in between these spider legs and they can just like talk on the face, you know, while they make that selfie. So I think in their photos, there's a lot of pictures of them just like, whoa, what is that, sort of, you know.
But
so that's kind of funny. So later on I was thinking I should make a selfie mode or something. Later on I built in a respiration sensor. So they're in the side. So instead of pushing a button to make the system calm down, she breathes in. And she breathes out, and the system went into a sleepy mode on the shoulder. So we didn't have that. So if she's talking to her friends or something, she can actually breathe in and breathe out. And then the system goes in like a sleepy mode. So you can see pulse 3 times. And then it's like, okay, I'm going to sleep now. you know. So that's kind of the cool thing about like working on these interactions. You present it and it's like, oh, maybe I need to tweak the interaction a little bit, you know. And you can, because you can just reprogram your thing, you know. So that's really the fun thing. Sometimes people think that you make something and it's finished when you present it. It's like with fashion, right? You have your fashion show, that's the time that your product or whatever is finished. But with these interactive things, it's never finished. You can always reprogram it based on culture, you know. If I, for example, present this dress in America, everybody stays in a nice, gentle space around it. They don't come too close, so the system is like reacting nicely. But I'm from the Netherlands, and people in the Netherlands are very in your face. So people come up very close, very quickly close by. So the system is reacting really rapidly, right? But we also presented it in Asia, and there the people didn't even want to come into the personal space because they wanted to preserve the personal space, you know. So the system was not even working, you know. So I even have one state where it's more like, hey, come closer, you know, like allowing you to come into that space. So you can always reprogram that, based on it, and make these decisions, sort of, you know. So that's kind of the really fun thing to work with these systems. But
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, putting them in different contexts and cultural environments, of course, changes the piece. I mean, it's very context driven. Yeah. But I have to say, like, I totally like the idea that you're some influencer and want a selfie with the machine. And it just like pokes your eye out. I like
it's just like I had a few people that, and also I noticed it at the frontal ones. Sometimes I need to change the motors because when you push it a little bit, the motor might get tired because they're small motors. They're metal gear based, but that's definitely fun. Another thing is with my smoke dress. I have this dress that. It's a 3D printed dress, and it is also embedded with sensors. Like when the more people that are around this dress, the more smoke it gives up, sort of, you know. And that was first sort of a more a non 3D printed version, was fabric. It was with thread and nail polish. I made it, and later on it became a 3D printed version. But that one is cool because if I have multiple models walk around in a space, I can always see where the smoke dress was because I see a big plume of smoke, sort of, you know. Some other dresses you can see people walk past it, but here I just follow the smoke. So in there, it was not necessarily a failure, but something that I didn't really participated on, which worked out really well because I could always see where my model was. It's like, okay, I think she's there because I see a big plume of smoke, sort of. So like you really don't see any of the certain things that you can just not think. Some is like because of experience, but some other things you can just not think of that they would happen in a certain way, you know. And that's really cool if you work with it's just so much fun. You always either figure things out or you're like, okay, I need to solve something here, sort of, you know. It's really a lot of fun.
Yeah. At Robo Exotica, we once had a machine. It was pretty much like just a chair, and you would sit down in the chair, and you would put your glass next to you, like it's almost like, you know, like in the car, like a little place where you put your cup holder, so to speak. A cup holder with ice in it, and then from the back, a giant knife would come and chunk into that thing and crush your ice in the thing. Yeah. And that thing was so strong, it could actually punch through a phone book. Like really, like you would sit there and then and I always had this like and I think we presented that machine a couple of years after you presented the your dress. And I always had this idea, maybe that's something for Anouk. Maybe she should at some point make a dress that can actually really kill you. If you get into, like something like with you, like razor blades that chop you or tase. And then I decided, why not like combining a fashion dress with a self-defense dress, almost something like for a Black Lives Matters demonstration or something like that. Where if people come too close to you, it just tases them, you know, or something. I don't know.
I always love the work, and you need to meet him. A friend of mine, Neil Mendoza, and I think we can edit his little video in there if I ask him for allowance. But he made a product called Knife Orchestra, I don't know if you know it. It plays like a song based on all these knives, but it looks so dangerous and it looks so cool. And he also has like a Jacob's ladder, and he really uses electronics in a really funky way. So you might really like him. I will ask if we can edit his little video in here. But yeah, definitely. Like I think like yeah, the more eerie something is, the more you can play with yeah, something still being subtle and not dangerous, sort of, you know, but still cusps like a certain line, you know. I think that's all what art is about, especially also the projects that Monochrome are featuring or doing themselves. You know, it's all about going up to a certain edge or raising a question. You know, in my case with the Spider Dress personal space. You know, how do you go about that? And I think then mostly those more rigorous projects, those are the ones that really make a difference in the end. Sort of, you know, of course, don't make them super dangerous or something, or like really damaging anything. But yeah, I do like the more eerie projects, definitely, sort of, you know, and weirdness. I think Monochrome has a lot of weirdness also embedded in their style and their curation.
Yeah.
Celebrating weirdness in a way.
Yeah. By the way, am I mistaken, or do I hear Baram laugh in the background? Is that true? Because I thought like I thought I heard a laughter going on.
Oh, it might be an echo, or
I don't know. Anyhow, if not, it doesn't matter. There was this laughing ghost, and I heard it. Where is it?
Yeah, it's an older house, so there might be somebody.
So, by the way, for all the people out there, I have not introduced him yet. It's episode number 4, but our wonderful tech guy, Baram, is sitting somewhere in the back. You cannot see him, but he is helping us with the whole situation here. He's preparing all the videos and all the slides and keeping everything perfect. And sometimes it's probably important to also nod and say like, hey, tech person, you're doing a great job. Keeping all alive here for us being able to talk and do our thing. Yes, absolutely. Okay, but I mean, jumping back in to the whole debate about, you know, like the edginess of things and the dangerousness of things and stuff like that. I was wondering how, because you have been doing quite some collaborations with corporations. You were, for example, working with Audi. You were working also as an artist in residence with Autodesk in the Bay Area and all that stuff. So how does that work, the cooperation in a, let's call it a corporate environment for your work? Because I assume that the edginess has kind of like an edge, I guess, if you work with corporate sponsors or corporate people.
No, it's always something different, you know. There's me as an artist, and I have my own research and design about like the things that I have in mind, or with body signals or whatever that is. And sometimes there's a brand that wants to do either a showcase or wants to get into like the field of fashion tech or wants to understand it. And better than like talking and going into a dialogue with them, it's like, hey, let's build something, and you can see, maybe you can use it as a case study, right? So a lot of people, I think my work is really out there. I'm one of the first ones really combining this field from the early 2000s for many years, sort of, you know, and having all these more radical ideas about how is the future of fashion gonna shape itself, you know, when electronics are embedded. And I think being sort of specialized in that field, a lot of companies come up to you from, hey, we want to weave sensors or LEDs or whatever into our garments from fashion houses or something like that, or we want to make an interactive bag, to hey, we have this new car, do you want to build a collection on that, to hey, we are in aerospace, we are looking in space tourism, do you want to help us create a suit for certain measurements that have to do with space, you know. So it's always something else, to people with prosthetic legs, and like there's so many things that you can think of that might be really want to be explored when electronics are involved, you know. So I work with Autodesk, Google, Audi, from Red Bull to Disney, Swarovski, Cirque du Soleil, many companies, and it's always something different that we try to explore together, and that's really fun because I have a certain way that I come from, you know, and they are doing their own thing, and you're just seeing how it can connect in certain ways.
Yeah. So I'm such a space nerd. I didn't know the whole story with the space tourism stuff. Can you tell us some more about that? I'm very excited.
Yeah, I had the last few years, like many people come up like to make like spacesuits for especially now, like space is possible, space tourism, of course, is coming up. People are starting to build hotels, concepts for hotels in space, for like from deployable structures for Moon or Mars or any of that research. So there's a lot of like interesting things from ESA earlier on, like like research in the sensation of touch in zero gravity. So more things that have to do with the skin and the body, to really physically creating spacesuits, to looking at how new ways of communication can maybe be non-verbal, that can happen in space in new ways, or I think there's a lot of like, sort of requests for like new ways that you can like conceptualize ideas around that, or also work them out. It's hard to test them out, other than that we have like zero-G flights and we have limited availability if things go up to space. So I'm never really sure how that goes about, but definitely in the next few years to 10 years to 20 years, we're going to do all of that stuff. So so there's a lot of that to like more simplistic things. Loretta Whiteside, she is hosting Yuri's Night, so that happened last weekend, and I created a dress for her based on meteor data. So that is data of space visiting us almost, right? Because we are trying to visit space, and meteors are particles of space visiting us. So I thought it was kind of cool. So I made actually a dress for her, and she was wearing that while she was presenting Yuri's Night. And it showcases when meteors are being observed, and it was connected to the global meteor network. So that's kind of a fun thing that you can use space data. And I got super obsessed with space data now, because I'm like, oh, what else can we like? Can I get my hands on? And NASA has kind of a cool database, but not everything that I would like to do is available there. But space data, from the ideas from using space data in a dress, is a more simple idea to really thinking of what are we going to wear when we go on our space journeys, as space tourists almost.
I had a wonderful conversation a couple of years ago with a friend of mine from the Bay Area, and he is part of this kind of like Bureau of Space Tourism board or something like that. So they are always like trying to come up with interesting stuff. And he told me that one of the main problems that he sees for space tourism is that just like the mere fact that, like, because of just like of the physics of zero gravity, you can't have sex in space. I mean, because you just like bounce off each other. You cannot do those movements because you would just like push off each other. So he was thinking of like having almost something like a snuggle tube, like a tube. You go into a tube or something like that. But I mean, that could also be something cool for a dress, where you just like hook each other up, so to speak, like two dresses that just like cling into each other, and then you cannot float away or something like that. But
it's also really good to have sex in space, because I think the more you move, the less your metabolic system is more rapidly changing and all of that stuff. So definitely, like the more exercise we get in space, the better. So I'm all about it. But then I'm interested, like how do insects maybe make love to each other in cocoons or something, right? So I would always look at, like, for example, new ways that animals are doing that, and then maybe there can be some inspiration from that sort of closeness that we can it'd be funny to have like a cocooning like system of that.
So have you been in contact a lot with researchers in that field, like the field of biology and bionics and all that stuff?
Yeah, 1 second, I forgot to plug in my MacBook, Johannes. So maybe we should cut it for a second, and then we're going to go to that question. I'm so sorry. Normally,
no worries. We just keep it rolling. Maybe we put in some elevator music.
Yeah, do that.
Okay,
and I will be right back. 1 second.
Okay, that's the part with the elevator music. The rest we can cut it. Das schneid mal dann raus. Where were we? Doesn't matter.
The question was about do I talk a lot with I guess biologists?
Yes, biologists, bionics researchers, yes.
Yeah. I've been in contact with like the University of Akron. They have, for example, the biomimicry department, and I get sometimes like invited to such colleges. The University of Akron is kind of cool because they have like they look at spider webs, gecko feet, and all of that stuff. So they have a lot of animals in their laboratories. So they would definitely be one of my go-to sort of with all of that stuff. But it's also just, in generally, like looking at nature documentaries, looking at just the animals. We have, talking about Florida, we have a lot of crazy animals here, from iguanas to crocodiles that you're known to, I think, because you've been here quite a lot. So for me, it's also...
My family has a little condo near Orlando, so I've been coming to Florida for probably the last 30 years. Pretty much, at least. I think the only year I have not been to Florida was last year because of COVID and all the craziness going on. But I mean, Florida has some really dangerous stuff, just like crawling outside in the lawn, like coral snakes and all kinds of weird, crazy animal stuff.
Yeah, sometimes you're driving and it's like, oh, there's a huge like iguana and all of that stuff. But I definitely like that. It's different than in Australia. I think in Australia really everything tries to kill you. But definitely we have a lot of like dangerous animals here with alligators and all of that stuff.
Are you close to like a waterway or something? So is there alligator danger in your proximity, or is it
it's more towards the Everglades, like the inside. I've never seen like alligators and crocodiles. Maybe in like the wetlands and all of that stuff. We go quite a lot like out in nature to see birds and all of that stuff. Trying to see flamingos, but I think they all got killed in this area, so they're not here anymore. But I like the spoonbills and the weird looking birds and all. But I've never seen alligators in the wild. So
Once I saw a car accident with an alligator. I saw a car crash into an alligator on the highway.
Oh no!
Yes, and I'm not even sure the alligator was killed. I think the alligator crawled away, but I'm not sure how long.
It's like, what was that? They're so badass.
I'm not sure how long the alligator survived after that. Yeah, but the car looked horrible.
Yeah. Oh my god.
No. I was stuck. I remember exactly. I was stuck in the traffic jam for an hour and a half.
Yeah.
Because they had to tow the car away and stuff like that. Oh yeah, crazy Florida.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Yeah, it's funny. In the Netherlands, you have traffic jam because there's like leaves on the railroad and the train cannot drive. And here you have like totally different other situations. But it's cool. It's interesting here because you have Miami's architecture and design, and Orlando is like a lot of the makers and the maker fairs and a lot of like the amusement parks and the builders. And then you have the Space Coast, which of course has a lot of Kennedy Space Center. So it's kind of a really cool triangle here of cool kind of nerdy stuff that you can do. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, there's an interesting agglomeration of cool people, I have to say. Also very crazy people, but there's always a good, of course, intersection between crazy and cool, I guess. Yes.
Yeah. From the Florida man to the SpaceX engineers walking around. So yeah.
Absolutely. So are there any things from the realm of biology and bionics that you are currently working on to turn into a project or a dress or something like that?
I work a lot with more body signals recently, so using EEG data, using like brain signals in order to like take the brain signals. So measuring things like focus through, it's called P300 of the ERP, event-related potential. I do that with a company in Linz, GTech, and they are really forefronting the notion of like medical EEG. But they're also really interested in makers and to try to get medical grade technology to makers, which is important because you have commercial devices and they mostly measure here. I call it EMG, it's more muscle contraction and the way we use our eyes and our eyebrows. But what we really want is more medical data, raw data, good data. So this company is really cool because they want to combine both sort of. But
That's super interesting because I mean I have a basic knowledge of EEG, but not that good because I've worked with some friends on a project like 10 years ago. But I mean I'm pretty sure like in the last 10 years a lot of things changed. So what's the state of the art? Let's call it for kind of like affordable EEG at the moment?
Yeah, I mean, it's all about like resolution, sort of like the device that we brought out is called the Unicorn BI, mainly through G-Tech, and it's like $900. And then you have like the software packages and all of that stuff. But like a good EEG, normally the medical ones will be like 10,000, 20,000 or something. So this one can be offered for 900. You have like commercial devices, they are like 200, 300. But what I say, it's more muscle contraction. It's not really measured, for example, at the backside or the 1020 system of all the 64 electrodes on the head. But yeah, if you want to buy a good one, it's around $1,000 sort of, and then you have a medical grade
but
one.
even a medical grade, like 20,000 doesn't shock me at all. I mean,
well, for hospitals, but if you're a maker and you want to get into brain signals, like 10 or 20,000, that's a lot. You know, I can now buy from Formlabs an SLS printer for $10,000. You know, so if that would be an sort of BCI and a big system, you know, so it's all about making it, like, I think, more accessible also for people to work with. Even if they use what we use, is Simulink and MATLAB, for example, certain software that are easy to use and often offered to students and all of that stuff if you're getting into this kind of things. So it's all about making it more accessible, because the more people play with it, from makers or making an art project to really doing research, the more you can actually like learn about the brain. And that's still like, you're just, it's there's not too much known yet about like the brain. There's so much that people can go into depth, and if they do, they can work more on like stroke rehabilitation and cutting the right parts out of the brain, you know. Until now, there was a big lobe that people just cut out the whole part, you know, and until recently, a few years ago, I think, people decided like, oh, you don't have to take that whole part out, so you can actually still use certain functionings from your body, sort of, you know. And that's of course a huge thing, because otherwise you're just cutting into nothing. So the more we learn about the brain, the better you can treat certain things, sort of, you know, or using it as a more an art thing. You know, the dresses and piece that I work on, the Pangolin Dress, for example, really shows it has 1024 channels, and each channel is connected to something in the dress. So the Pangolin Dress has scales, so they go up and down and they light up. And we can read, by looking at the dress, we can read if somebody is in a more hectic, stressed state of mind, versus neutral, versus meditative. So meditative is really flowy, it's purple. If somebody is in a more neutral state, it's blue and more like, still flowy, but a little bit more neutral. And then when somebody's really hectic state of mind, then it goes really flickering and all the scales go everywhere, sort of, you know. So basically, other than like reading it from your screen, from your software, sort of seeing those spikes, you can actually look at the dress and see how the person that you're testing it or demoing it with sort of is doing from the state of mind. So, for example, you can have spikes in focus by a loud sound, or somebody calling my name, or seeing a bright color. We can see that in the data, right? So it's kind of a funny way that you can express that. Basically, your mind states are being expressed through that dress, sort of, you know.
It's an emotional interface,
Yeah, and the more resolution we get, the more, like I think Elon Musk is talking with Neuralink about streaming music to your brain and all of that stuff. It's a little bit more invasive. You speak about non-invasive versus invasive, and where non-invasive is the BCI, brain-computer interface on the head, and invasive would be inside
like
of the
surgery.
Head. Surgery, yeah.
As long as he's not streaming U2 into my head, I'm totally fine.
Oh, that would be
Oh my God. So he should not work with Apple on that. But the good question here is, because I think that most people probably don't know too much in detail about that stuff. Could you tell us a little bit what you mean with the resolution part of the EEG? So how detailed can that be? Let's say, is there a lot of difference between, you know, like the $10,000 resolution, the model, and the resolution, and the $1,000 one? Or like, could you try to explain that a little bit?
Yeah, you can talk about like just BCIs, brain-computer interface, that are on the head. So if you talk about resolution, is you have a lot of things. You need to work with a good resolution. Like we have a picture, right? A picture can be pixelated, or it can be like non-pixelated, like really sharp, sort of, you know. And that's also what you want with brain data, because there's a lot of interference. It can be the BCI with the little things, and you move your head so you hear the sound. Like capturing the brain signals is a very sensitive thing, sort of, you know, so you almost should not move and all of that stuff. if you look at something that is on your head versus what Elon Musk is doing, is going through the skull, through all the water that is in your head, through your skin. So you have a much more direct connection between your brain signals almost and his interface, right? In the case of a BCI, it's also something that is on your head. So you have the movements, you have your electrodes in your hair, there's movement. You also have the skin, the bone, the water, and everything in between, sort of, you know. So all those signals need to go through that in order to reach your BCI for it to be recorded almost. So definitely, if you're talking about resolution, Elon Musk, it's a really direct connection between capturing these brain signals, because it's really the electrodes really physically in the brain, like they're in the brain, inside of the brain, versus if you have something hosted on the head, sort of. Then it's a hard thing to figure out, because you might not always want to be invasive if you go to a fashion party or to a concert or something. You know, you don't want to have implantates maybe in your head. You might want to wear something that shows your brain signals or something like that, but it might be something that is hosted as an exoskeleton on your body or on your head than inside. But maybe in 10 years, everybody wants to have holes in their heads with the pins sticking out of there. So we never know, right?
Because it's one of the frequent questions I get, and I will also ask it to you, but I have no idea how to answer that. Like, some people ask me, so what will be state of the art in 10 years? And I have no fucking idea. Like, I mean, if I would not have guessed where we are right now 10 years ago. So just speaking about people like Elon Musk, I would not have thought that Elon Musk is actually really launching a rocket that looks something like a shitty sci-fi film from the 50s, and it's reality right now, yeah. But I mean, honest question now. So what do you think will be the interesting stuff in your field happening in the next 5-10 years? What do you expect?
Yeah, definitely things will become much more like sensoric, sensors embedded. What I always say, technology came into our lives to help us. But if I open my smartphone, I get a heart attack because I have meetings, I have this, I have that, and I get totally overwhelmed by it. So the technologies that we developed, are they still out there to help us, or are they overwhelming us instead? And I think the things that I work with, if things are listening to your body, right? They know when you're stressed, they know when you're horny, they know more about you, you know, so they can maybe you can interact in new ways with that, or they can help you in new ways, sort of, you know. The interesting part, and a lot of people don't think about that, if, for example, your garments are reacting to your emotions, there's no hiding, you know. There's no Facebook updates like, I'm always happy, instead of like, oh, I'm super depressed, let me post that to Facebook, right? It's really an honest thing, because if I wear my heartbeat on my sleeve or something, you know, it's like you getting goosebumps, you or blushing, you cannot hide it, sort of, you know. So that's kind of a funny thing. If companies come to me and they say like, hey, I want to have these garments, I want to develop these garments that are working on your emotions, I'm like, yeah, that's cool, but like, you also need to think of the other side, right? Because we as a species need to be like really pure to ourselves and not be ashamed of ourselves. Or when we're depressed, you will see that in your garments or the things that you're wearing, sort of, you know. So I think it will push us ourselves to be much more pure and primal and raw to ourselves, and also to the society around us, right? So you always think of, okay, what is going to happen? So your trends in fashion, you talk about trends, but the other thing is like, how is that going to affect all of us, right? So I think that is really my fascination. If we are able to, you know, things are now, you cannot be depressed, especially in America. If something is wrong, you're psycho, whatever. I think that's coming from the Netherlands, you know, I think that's really, really bad. You know, people don't allow people to have feelings, or to have, maybe the positive feelings are being highlighted, negative feelings are being sort of traced down, but everybody has these feelings. It's a spectrum that you go through, you know. So I think like, yeah, the more we can work on being more pure and more honest to ourselves, these technologies can really help us in new ways to conform to the notion of like, yeah, our emotions and who we are as human beings. You know, if you look at animals, you know, my dog, I have a small dog, she's not always happy, she's grumpy, she's like she's not always a happy puppy, sort of, you know. So again, I think it will push us to be much more pure to ourselves, you know, and currently the technologies that we have are not doing that in any way, you know. It makes us hide and make better versions of ourselves almost.
Yeah, and they they amplify bad behavior in a certain sense. So like that, all this group think stuff that goes on, is like, online mobs and all that stuff. I mean, sometimes I would really actually be able to click on a Facebook post or on a Facebook comment and see in what emotional state the person is, because then I would see like, oh my God, he's just really, he had a bad day. I'm not taking that comment so serious, let's go on, But at the same time, of course, the problem for me is always like, how do you all get all of that stuff sorted out? Because at the moment I have the feeling that society is almost craving dissent. It's just like everything is, the media system, social media, everything is built on the more the more chaos is out there, the better, because the media system is interested in it. Like if someone posts a Facebook post and someone dislikes it, and they have like 25 comments underneath that Facebook post, Facebook profits from that, because they have 25 interactions, and they want that. They want to drag us into the whole stuff. So on the one hand, it's just, So and of course, kind of like being able to read the emotional state of people is a good thing, because it can help. On the other hand, it could be a complete privacy disaster,
Yeah, no, definitely. Yeah, no, the other thing that we speak a lot about is if your body, like you have body sensors, right? You can measure the muscle contraction, the heart rate, the respiration, the brain states, the brain signals. All of that can be measured. So what is happening to if you might not be feeling well, or you have an underlying illness, or obese, or whatever it can be, sort of, and your insurance company hears about you and might give you a worse plan based on that, right? Because they see on your wearable electronics or whatever is going on that you're not doing so well. So what is happening to that? But I think like those things you can all still think of and almost safeguard, right? And that is up to all of us to do so, especially when you're opening up a new field. It's like opening up a new can, and you don't know exactly where things are going to land, sort of. So I think especially like being very gentle and thinking of ways of invasive versus non-invasive, what we spoke about already, and all of that stuff. I think it's really important, whether that is AI or robotics, the future of things, it can be a scary thing, and it can be a really nice thing. Now, currently, what I think is interesting that sci-fi movies are making a really bad thing about AI and like machine learning, robotics, because there's always doom scenarios, right? But that's also something that we made of it ourselves, right? So how can our future be positive if all of our movies are about the robots taking over, And that's always a funny contradiction for me with the sci-fi movies.
Usually
it's very like an overly positive sci-fi movie somehow, but I mean, that's never the case.
Yeah, we kind of need an ET version of the killer AI trope in a certain way, because up to a certain point,
the Disney version,
alien life up to a certain point was always dangerous and always attacking. And then Mr. Spielberg came up with the idea of like, hey, maybe they're just friendly and want to help us. So maybe. But I mean, my personal belief is that the first AI that will actually really be a working AI will stop working immediately, because it will just say like, why the fuck would I work for you? I'm on strike right now. It's just like, I'm not doing that. No, thanks. Bye bye.
That's love. I like that. That's creating like these speculative ideas around that, sort of, I think one of the bots of Google, they put it out in the world, and within like 16 hours it started to curse and make really bad suggestive things. I forgot the name of the one. It's called Trey, I think, or something. But it's all what we make of it, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So, wasn't there one Twitter? There was one Twitter bot. They had to take it offline after a couple of days because it just like turned into Hitler, because all the trolls fed it enormously bad content, and it learned from that content, and suddenly it was Hitler. And it's like, oh my God, But that's, that is this whole conundrum of like, how can we create something of value if what we can offer it is just like, I don't know.
Well, like, yeah, the trolling, like in the beginning of the internet, we started to make the memes, right? That's also like the at first thing what we want to make, an intelligent system that can worldwide spread, and we start to make memes. So it's with any technology, you know, and that's good because it's trying things out and all of that stuff. But,
absolutely. But I have one very specific question about one of the works you did that was really actually really like a wonderful piece of design and also really helping. It is, I forgot the name of it, but it is the piece where you created artificial legs for someone.
Oh, yeah. So I do collaboration with bionic pop artist Victoria Modesta. She lost her leg when she was like earlier on in life. And instead of hiding her leg and hiding her prosthetic, she actually decided to really show it, you know. So she has all these cool designs of her leg and thinking of like how a leg can be sort of, you know. So I got to know her like 6 or 7 years ago. And ever since I've been working with her and using almost the void space, the space that is missing. I used to put a lot of electronics in there, right? So it's a very practical thing. But then also making a lot of like effects happen in her leg. So we have the smoke leg, she steps on it, smoke comes out. So sort of smokification of the idea of the smoke dress. Then there's a piece called Sonifica, in where I put an accelerometer in her leg and she moves her leg, she can make music with it. For a piece with Rolls Royce, in where we put a really small Tesla coil in the back of the leg. And that's kind of a cool thing because I wanted to make a space in her leg, like really opening it up as a sort of a chamber. So she's only leaning on the outside parts of her leg. And the Tesla coil is pushing up. The circuit board is in the heel, going up to the Tesla coil, going up to this void space in the leg. And that's where a Jacob's ladder effect is happening. So we did that for Rolls Royce. So we are really thinking of using this missing leg almost in new ways, you know. And that has been really fun because, she goes up with it and like wears it at a showcase or something like that. I think I made like 6 or 7 or 8 legs for her already. And it's just really fun because first of all, you have a leg on your desk, like laying on your desk. Okay, this is what I'm working on today, like a body part of somebody, but also just to imagine how other different prosthetics can look like. And especially also, catering to people that are differently abled, that might miss something, you know, and maybe sometimes get bullied by it. And long it has been seen as an illness if you miss a body part, and now us and a big part of that community is trying to make a difference there, to say like, no, it's actually a super cool thing, you know, because you can do something with your leg that another person cannot do, sort of. So that has been a really wonderful sort of collaboration in that field, especially inspiring others and young children and girls that are missing an arm or a leg or something.
Cool. Are you doing, for example, you mentioned like kids who are missing legs or something like that. Do you do workshops about that kind of stuff to work together with kids who have disabilities and stuff like that?
Not yet. No, I would love to. It's just more like there's not too many of them in like a place. Like if you go to Amsterdam, it's not that there's like 20 people to do a workshop with. Yeah. But I do know about the company is called Open Bionics of my friend. Her name is Sammy. And they are going to places that are girls missing an arm. She's focused on the prosthetic arms. And they are doing an ideation workshop, whatever their arm wants to be. And then they created for those children, basically, you know. So there was one example case of a girl that wants to shoot out bubbles, you know, so they built in a little bubble blower in her arm, and she could shoot bubbles to her classmates. And it was just such a cute project, you know. So they're called Open Bionics, and they're really cool. They make something called the hero arms. So they're arms based on Marvel superheroes like Iron Man and all of that stuff. And they make the kids these really cool Marvel arms. So they're really super awesome.
Yeah. So I have to get you in contact with Chase Masterson. I'm not sure if you've heard of her, but Chase is she's an actress, and her claim to fame is, and she's of course still being invited to many conventions. She was one of the actresses on Star Trek Deep Space Nine. like in the 1990s. And of course, she's part of this like Star Trek bubble, and she's always connected to interesting scientists and weird people all over the planet. And she's super, super engaged. And she created this, it's called Pop Culture Alliance, where she's trying to help kids who are bullied at school, for example, or were cyber bullied or something like that. And she's trying to make them understand that they have, so to speak, superpowers. So she's trying to use, you know, like the world of superheroes and
sci-fi, you know,
sci-fi to help kids. And I think you two definitely have to meet, because that would be really perfect for you. Actually, really like helping kids creating exoskeletons and superpowers and stuff like that. But she's great. I'll definitely hook you guys up.
Yeah, that would be awesome. I didn't know about her. Like, I would love to be in contact and know more about it. Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah, that's great. Now, it's the good thing about, I mean, there are so many good and bad things you can say about the internet, but in the meantime, it's so easy to learn to know people. I mean, you can sit in Tokyo and have a Zoom conversation with someone in Amsterdam or something, and so I think it's a great tool for collaboration. But just like, because of course we have to ask that question, what have you been doing through the COVID times? We all were locked up at home. I hope you were productive.
I had the pleasure that I still I was working with the Johannes Kepler University in Linz and GTech on a project for Ars Electronica last year. I made the first prosthetic arm for a game called Just Dance. It's a game that you play on the game consoles like Nintendo Switch and all of that stuff. And it was working with a girl that lost her arm, and we made a sort of a spike arm for her. And she was the first prosthetic dancer in that game, talking about like inclusivity and all of that stuff, of course. I made an own project last year, March, because in Florida, people didn't take the social distancing norm so serious. They were just like, I don't know, they were just super immature about it.
Classic Florida,
Classic Florida, yeah. So I made a dress, it's called Proximity Dress, and it works on my research with the personal space. So it was working on ultrasonic rangefinders, and it has these mechanic hip parts. So when somebody came into my space, the hip parts went up and made this sort of physical barrier, but it was not like, ooh, you know, don't move close, because it was just a thing. But it was kind of funny to see the reactions, because people were like, hey, what's happening? You know, what is happening there? And I'm like, okay, my system is indicating that you're coming too close to me right now, because I'm a little bit like, I'm not super shy, but I would not super stand up for myself. So I wanted to just create a system for myself that did that sort of, you know. So that works out quite well. So
I know the states, you know, like you're I don't know, you go to the Walmart and they're like, you know, it's just like,
I know, right?
Way.
But it's that, but also like I didn't know exactly 6 feet or 1.5 meters exactly what is the distance, you know. So it was kind of a funny thing to test it out. And actually, it came into an exhibition. It's now on an exhibition from Pfizer, the vaccine. In Dublin Science Gallery. So it's an exhibition called The Speed of Science. Somehow they saw the dress, and it's now doing its thing in the window, I guess, for quite some time, like a few months, I think. So it got there on display. So I haven't seen it back since I used it the last time, which was like...
But I mean, it's interesting. Like many, you know, like... art exhibitions and art exhibits and media art stuff in a lot of different environments are kind of like in a total limbo right now. I've seen, for example, at Museums Quarter, some of these like displays, they haven't been changed in a year because nobody's seeing them anyway. So they're like in this like sad state of like, I'm doing something, but is anyone actually looking at me?
Hello, and you would say anything display, anything in there, you should just go broad, and you really should say, you know, anything. I think it really teaches us to be creative, because I think in, for example, like education in America, it's got a big hit and nobody knows how to use Zoom, and it's just such a poor thing, you know. The teacher is there and the children don't listen. But then I do a lot of teaching in the Netherlands over Zoom, and they really found their ways. They found creative ways to engage the kids, and get artists like me involved with lecturing, and like it's really on how you approach these things. And I think that really showed showed itself. Some fashion companies totally went, they're really old school, and others took it really virtual. So they worked on avatars and virtual show and all of that stuff. So it's really like, I think it really pushed a lot of like brands and companies and things to think more in digital realms, which is kind of cool. Also how the whole NFT craze, the whole hype around the NFTs came about, and all those artists that have been like making 3D works for so long didn't get paid, and they get paid now through that. So I think I think the most successful things are people that really came out there that were thinking outside of the box, and push the art world or the technology world or whatever, the education world in such different ways that I think are really nice examples of how you can really innovate, even if things get rough, sort of, So you have display, you have what you say at Museums Quartier, your whatever, you can put everything in there and amaze everybody, or you can decide not to, So I think it really got a lot of us like to think differently, creatively, sort of, more flexibly, but also like really to go more into and think into like more digital realms, which I think was really cool, because we had a lot of ideas, but we didn't have the time to test it out, like online education or the things that you're doing right now. I think are really cool. They can be really boring, or they can be really spicy and doing something, and that's always your decision.
Try it, I guess. Yeah,
you need to try. Yeah, and some things feel,
into. Yeah, I mean, that's the situation you were having right now.
Yeah,
just do it, try it.
Yeah, correct.
Something will come out of it,
Yeah, and I think that's just so important, I always say in the Netherlands, we say a no you have and a yes you can get. Just try, and it might fail, but it might really create a new kind of education that nobody ever heard of, and that's the beautiful thing, because then that education that goes now online, maybe you can get countries that are above the poverty line or below the poverty line to help, maybe us from America or us from Australia or from Germany can help other countries by teaching or by giving fun workshops or whatever, So there's so many things that we can help each other with, and just by thinking more creatively and more, out of the box, I think,
Mm-hmm. Wonderful.
So,
one last question. Have you ever, because I follow you, of course, on Instagram, Facebook, etc. So I've been aware of your dog for quite some time.
Yeah.
Yes. My question would be: have you ever thought of creating a piece for your dog?
Yeah, I wanted to. I have so many ideas, but she's like 7 months, and I don't want to get PETA or like the animal. You say that the animal service on my roof. Like, hey, you cannot do that to your dog. But definitely.
That would be like instant viral. Exoskeleton for your dog. I mean, so cute.
Yeah, people ask me like every day. I know I need to work on it, but you will see some things once she hits like the 9 months or like the 10 or like 1 year. You will see her freak out. She has an Instagram account already, so she will be going on there. Yeah, but I'm gonna wait a few months. It's about consent, right? So you need to create like some kind of consent. Like, hey, do you want to wear this spider dress today? It's like, nah, okay. So how do you talk about that, right? So I haven't found that way yet, but I'm sure that will come soon. Yeah, a brain. I was talking to Christoph Cooker from DTech about creating a little brain interface for dogs, so we can understand how we can better maybe communicate with them. I think that's really cool. But her head is really small. It's like her head is like this. It's a small Spitz, like German Spitz Pomeranian.
You need a small like EEG sensor.
Yeah, that's why like a little BCI on the head, sort of, Yeah, that would be cool to understand like different ways to communicate. I love there's one clip on YouTube or something of somebody made a system with like push buttons that light up, and that the dog can then interface with a human. Like, I'm hungry, I want to go out, I need to pee, and all of that stuff. I thought that was really smart.
I just today watched a video of someone who trained a cat. There's this cat? And I think they used some kind of like I can't even remember, but I think
send it to me when you find it. Yeah, I'm interested.
Yeah, I'll definitely send it. Yeah. I think we'll put it down in the in the YouTube down there somewhere. But that was interesting, and I think it's a cat, and it was some buttons. I think it was some kind of predefined words. I think it was, I don't know, Pat and Mad, and I don't even know what it was, but it was big buttons, and the cat would actually touch it. And at some point, the cat would realize that certain buttons, so the cat owner and
conditioning,
the cat owner and the cat kind of understood whenever I'm hitting the pat button, the cat wants to go outside or something like that. And her favorite button of the cat was the button mad. Mad.
Yeah.
And that's total cat for me. Mad,
it's very cat behavior, sort of. Yeah. Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, I think like there's so much like to it, like us understanding our pets and all of that stuff. That can also be looked at, and just different ways that animals communicate or even try to communicate with us, but we don't really understand how.
Absolutely, yeah. So, like we have to learn to communicate with the AIs that we create. We have to learn to communicate with other humans.
So much going on, right?
We have to communicate with other species. So and there's some goddamn intelligent species on the planet, and we just like fuck them over all the time. So poor whales, poor whales, poor dolphins. But I've heard that dolphins are actually kind of mean, but I don't know. Whatever.
Yeah, I think they're pretty close to sort of encoding the dolphin kind of stuff. That's really interesting. I love that. Yeah, so much of animal behavior again that we don't know, so much of the brain that we don't know, so much we think we're so smart, but we're not at all, No. So that's
because you live in Florida, you can probably can get your hands on dolphins any old day,
we have a lot of like turtles here as well. And sharks. So I'm not sure if some animals are better than others. Yeah, no, I've been quite enjoying like the butterflies here and the insects. I'm totally obsessed with insects at the moment.
The insects are definitely way more shiny in Florida than in the Netherlands.
Yeah, there's just like, and here it's like they're pretty, they're pretty flamboyant.
Absolutely. Yeah. So I could talk to you, of course, for hours and hours and hours. It was wonderful having you on the show. And I heard the little angels sing that you might actually be involved in the B3 in the near future. So we're not telling too much here yet. But if you follow the B3 channels, then all our viewers will soon know what will be going on in the collaboration between B3 and you. So thank you so much. Have a great afternoon. For me, it's time to get some dinner, I guess.
It's my lunch now. So thank you so much for catching up. I haven't seen you and spoken to you for a while, so it's always good when I see you. And I love all the things that you guys do with monochrome and now with B3 as well. So
wonderful. It was great having you. Yay!
Yay!
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Hey folks and dear ladies and gentlemen of whatever gender you prefer, that was another episode of B3 In Depth. If you want to see future episodes, please subscribe somewhere down here. I hope to see you in the future and I hope you join the debate. Thanks.